Chapter 24. I reached inside my large bag and pulled out a pair of 3-inch heels and placed the sneakers inside the bag. I needed a new makeover before I could go dancing. Since Chris was a buyer and she knew something about clothes and makeup, I put the question to her walking to the restroom. The restroom area was crowded with girls laughing and chatting. We had to wait for space at the vanity counter with its sinks and large mirrors. 3 or 4 girls were stacked in each section. "What can you suggest that would change me?" "I want to be different," I whispered, not sure of what I wanted or what it meant to be different in a crowd of attractive women older and younger than me. "You are different. Just be yourself." "But I want to look sexy different," I explained, turning to glance in the mirror as I passed my hand through my hair, then pulling it upward, wondering if this would make a difference in my appeal to the opposite sex. Chris pulled my hand down from my hair. "Well, why didn't you say so?" She studied me for a few seconds. She reached into her purse and set on the counter blush, eyeliner, eyelash curler, and she took out 4 makeup brushes. "It's all in the brush. If you have good brushes and the basics like red lipstick, you can conquer the world," she said, smearing the red gloss over my pale lips. "Now for the eyes," she said to me. "You need drama," and she rubbed some black eyeshadow in the creases near my eye. "Look." I turned around and faced the mirror. "You look like the Queen of the Nile." "I just want to be different, not Cleopatra," I said to her. But I had to admit, I did look exotic and different. "Trust me, you want to be Cleopatra tonight." She went to work on my cheeks, and when she finished, she stepped back. "Now take a look." I turned to the mirror and my first question was, "Who's that amazing hot chick?" "You look terrific." "You sizzle," she said. I eased out a smile. My smile grew and grew until all my teeth were showing, and I shouted, "Yeah." We high-fived twice. My smile changed. I pulled at the hem of my jacket and tried to lift my skirt. "I can't go dancing looking like this until I stop at the loft." "If you go to the loft, you'll never leave," she said to me. Chris walked around studying me for a second. "I have it. It's that damn jacket." "Take it off." I did as she directed. "Now that's better. You have a camisole on, now that's great. You're showing some skin." "Great," she said, dancing around me with brushes in her hand as if she was Picasso painting her greatest work. "Hike that skirt up and we're outta here." I did as she directed, and I couldn't recognize myself with the red lipstick and the gold eyeshadow when I passed the floor-to-ceiling mirror. "The only thing you're missing are the eyelashes, but the black mascara will take care of that." She made a quick swipe of my lashes and said, "Enough. We're missing all the fun. You're done." We walked out of the bathroom, and the waiter's eyes swung in our direction, with a smile crossing his face. I took the check and left a large tip for the $100 burgers. Chris felt bad about not telling me about the expensive menu. She refused the rent money I planned on giving her for the month. We hailed a cab, and the cabbie let us out in front of the club. With high heels on, it became apparent that we would never make it down one city block without a shoe disaster. The cab was a good idea. We had drank too much beer and wine, and were giggling when we arrived at the High Flyers Club. I looked at the line outside and said, "We're never getting in there?" "Yes, we are. I know the owner." "But of course you do, why wouldn't you?" Chris could make friends in the strangest of places, and her friends came from all areas of society. She was easy to like, and she liked everyone. She was on first-name basis with some of the derelicts on the street, looking for food or a drink. Her mantra is, "You never know who that person is or will become in the future. You just have to treat people like human beings." Walking to the front of the line, the guy holding the rope ushered us through the throng of people standing in our way. As she passed, she waved, and a chorus of "Hi, Chris" echoed through the air as she high-fived them. You never fail to impress me. I felt important being with her. I always thought of myself as an important person, but never as much as with Chris. She appeared to know everyone, including the not-so-important people. She had a following of over 1 million people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and that was 5 years ago when we were in high school. Who knows how many followers she has today? I think I had 4 Twitter followers, my parents and 2 weirdos. Entering the club, the dance floor was full of young bodies, and the lights were flashing all around us. We are going up to the 2nd floor. It's too crowded here, Chris said. Walking up the stairs, I looked down on the floor with everyone dancing, jumping, shouting, and reveling in chaos. Jumping and sliding around. I've never been to a party or a dance before, and I was in heaven. Before I could sit down, someone caught my hand. Come dance with me. I looked to Chris for acceptance, and she nodded her head. Before I could make it to the main floor, Chris was there dancing, yelling her head off and jumping around. The guy was so cute when I finally got a good look at him. I was glad he asked me to dance, but he was a little too young for me. He had to be about 20 or maybe 18. He appeared to like me a lot, so I said, "What the hell?" and continued dancing. After all, what did I care? I wasn't going to marry him, and I was just out for the night. The music stopped and made a transition. It was a John Legend song. It was slow, and I found myself wishing for Brandon. My name is Lucas, the cute young guy said to me. If I liked guys my age, I could fall for him, but I loved Brandon and no one could compare with him. I know I have to get over him, but I couldn't get past him, and I've been trying. Well, Lucas, you're dancing with my wife, a low, sexy voice surrounded us. Before I could get into Lucas or introduce myself to him, a voice came from nowhere and invaded my senses. I knew that voice, I knew that man. It was Brandon. Where did he come from? What are you doing here? He said to me. I don't know what happened to Lucas, and I never turned to look around in his direction. I didn't feel Lucas's hand leave mine. When Brandon was around, it was as if no one existed anymore. He mesmerized me, and Lucas disappeared like ice in hot water. Brandon pulled me into his embrace. Feel me. I want you to feel me, he murmured with a tortured gaze as if he was somewhere else. Maybe he was back in Maine in the cool of summer, with that young impressionable girl who at one time was me. Or maybe he was with me now. That young woman who made him hot with desire. I need you so bad that I can't think anymore. His breathing heavy, and the stubble of his soft, clean-shaven beard flicking past my ear as he whispered, I need you, princess. You will always be mine. He unbuttoned his shirt. He had been dancing, and sweat poured from his taut body. The sweat fell like rain on a summer day, and my dress and body soaked it up. I could smell him on me. I could smell the scent that attracted me to him. He reached for my hand and it became stiff. He placed it on his bare chest. Feel my heart. I glanced into his desperate wide eyes as he strained to control his emotions. My heart beats for you, princess. Only you. Why can't you understand that and give me a chance? Give you a chance? For what? I never gave him the opportunity to answer. I was angry and resentful that he married Angela. I had no right to be. I knew he would marry her even when he tried to break it off. I hurt and I wanted him to feel pain. I can never be yours, remember. You are married, I shouted over the music and happy voices. I won't be for long. And when I no longer have Angela to worry about, I'm coming for you. You're mine. As we made a half turn, the young woman who was riding with him in his sports car was standing with her arms folded in front of us. I leave you for a few minutes and you have replaced me just that fast. She looked me up and down. From my hair, lips to my semi-expensive clothes and shoes. She was far prettier than I imagined. Her hair was short and dark brown, and she had wide blue-green eyes accented by the small emerald and diamond earrings she wore. Her dress, a short black one with spaghetti-thin straps holding it up, and on her feet were a pair of gold Jimmy Choo sandals to die for. I had fallen into that trap of designer clothes, even though I couldn't see when I would be able to buy a pair of $700 shoes. I was up to my head in the designer trap, and I felt myself drowning. Once I started on designers, I knew for sure the old me had died. The lack of money had kept balance in my life, and I held on to the last shred of me there was. "She's very pretty, Brandon. Why don't you introduce us?" she said with a childish smirk. I pulled away and was ready to run, when he caught my hand at arm's length and reeled me back to him. "This is my sister, Anna." "Anna, this is Tyler." Her smile grew bigger, warmer, and less threatening. Oh, you're the $1,000,000 girl," she said with a smile and extending her hand to me. I shook her hand and said, "I'm not sure it's me they're talking about." "But it is you. I see why Brandon gave Jordan a black eye. They've been at it since they were boys." "You weren't born when I was a boy," Brandon quipped. "You were never a boy," she said to Brandon. He kissed her forehead. She smiled and said, "I'm going. I can get in one more dance before Brandon takes me home." Anna left us standing on the dance floor to dance with a crowd of girls. Then she turned and ran in my direction. "Tyler, I'm having a graduation party. Would you be my guest?" She glanced at Brandon. "Anna, I don't think that's a good idea." "Not with this thing about Angela," he said. "Oh, nothing is wrong with her. She's such a drama queen. She's probably playing games because she knows you want a divorce. I wouldn't be surprised if she was in Europe with some cabana boy," Anna said to Brandon. "That's enough, Anna," he said softly. "It's not like I don't know everything that goes on in our family." She looked to me with wide-eyed innocence. "I'm not that naive. You know there is something called the Internet, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and not to forget Google. You should try it, Brandon, and stay out of those stuffy meetings and live a little." And she left us and went back to the mind-bending music. "I'm not going, Brandon," I said with him holding my hand. "Anna wants you there." "What about your mother?" "She never reads the paper. She is so involved with her charities that she doesn't have time for anything," he said, kissing my hand. "I admit that I want you to go. Anna wants you, and she is the only bright light in my life beside you, princess." The heat of 1,000 summers flushed through my body, and what once was a bad idea suddenly became a wonderful idea. When the night ended, I left with Chris, and Brandon reluctantly escorted his little sister home. Chapter 25. An invitation arrived from Anna Charles, and Chris brought it to my new apartment. She and Patrick helped me move. I was officially and unceremoniously on my own. A month had passed and I was still trying to acclimate myself to living in a small box, one room with bath, kitchenette, where my view consisted of a red brick wall and the window of a couple in love, reminding me that I was alone and missing out on sex. Chris's loft was spacious and awash in light. I could understand how Patrick would want to move there. It overlooked Central Park, and she had a terrace where you could sit and think and lose yourself in the splendid surroundings because of the silence. The apartment I moved to, fire engines and police sirens were blasting every hour, and I adopted the alley cat to keep the mice at bay. The cat wasn't bad, at least I had a friend. I informed Chris that she shouldn't tell Brandon I moved out. I transferred to my new job on 7th Avenue, and all was going well. Saturdays were my day to get acquainted with my new neighborhood. I made a visit to my father's house on Father's Day last week, and he appeared happy that I thought of him. But today was my day to lay around and try not to do any work, just wander the neighborhood shops for decoration for my new home. I dressed in jeans, a tee and sandals, and left the apartment at 11 a.m. I promised Chris I would have breakfast at a coffee bistro near my apartment. It was my apartment, even if it was a place I didn't want to be caught dead in. But since I'm alive, it's good enough for now. I could pay the rent because of the nice salary Jordan graciously paid me. I didn't question it for now, because I needed every bit of the money. I thought it strange that I hadn't heard from him, but oh well, such is life. I hadn't heard from Brandon either. When I arrived at the coffee shop, seated outside in the patio area, Chris sat with her usual smile. I ordered coffee and a croissant with butter. Chris had her usual coffee mocha. "How can you just drink coffee?" I said, as I sat across from her. "Easy. I don't have the carbs and I don't gain weight." "But the sugar," I said, as I saw her empty 2 packets in an already sweet concoction. "Well, I can't have both if I'm going to keep my girlish figure, and besides Patrick likes me a size 0. What does Brandon or Jordan think?" "We've never been that personal," I said, sipping my coffee and casting my eyes down. "Jordan and Brandon?" I said, looking at her and shaking my head. I didn't want to discuss something that the newspapers created with their gossip machines. I didn't want a personal and private conversation between friends to turn into mumble news. Seeing my eyes snap close for a second, Chris knew I was irritated. She reached into her large designer bag, which could hold an overnight worth of clothes and shoes, and placed letters on the table. "This is your mail." "Thanks." I requested a change of address. "These should be the last ones," I said. I picked the letters up, and before I could throw them in my shoulder bag, Chris put her finger on one of them and tapped it. "I think you should read this one." I glanced down and it was a fancy envelope with fancy writing. The kind of writing when they used fountain pens. "I received one too," Chris said. It was from Anna Charles, inviting me to a dinner at a country club in New Jersey to celebrate her high school graduation. "Are you going?" she asked. "I'm not sure," I said to her. "Don't use the excuse that you don't have anything to wear. I can lend you something." "But she already graduated." "Yes, but when you have money, the party goes on all summer until she's off to college." I looked at Chris, wondering why she didn't have a celebration, and she read my expression. My parents were out of the country, and they know that I abhor that kind of exhibition. I know Anna, she didn't want that either. She probably wanted a quiet dinner with the family. The Charleses have been known for their grand parties, though. That's probably why Brandon went along with his marriage to Angela. Once the invitations were out, it would take an act of Congress to stop it. It's the Charleses' way. They give their word and that's that. Thinking about Brandon's promise to divorce Angela brought a lot of questions to mind. Tyler, come back to earth." Chris snapped her fingers. "I saw Angela," Chris admitted. "Oh. I'm sorry. What did you say?" It took a few minutes for me to digest what she said. "You saw Angela." "Where?" I said, tilting my head, as if that would make the surprise sink in. "In Paris." She was sauntering around without a care, hands full with hat boxes and packages. I was sitting at one of the outdoor cafes near the Bohemian Montmartre. She had her limo waiting as the driver loaded all her boxes into the car. I looked at her with a bewildered expression. "Sorry," she said. "I assume everyone has been to Paris. It's near the Eiffel Tower." Now I knew what she was talking about. I had a frame of reference, not that I had been there or ever expected to see it. I thought. Chris interrupted me. You and everybody else. She pulls all kinds of stunts. Like the night she told Brandon she was pregnant. That was the night he said to her that he wanted to call off the wedding. How do you know this? Why, I know everyone who is anyone, she said, smiling and taking a sip of her coffee. There are no secrets in that circle. They tell everything, including how they make love to their partners, lovers, and husbands. They tell who is hung and who does oral. That's enough, Chris, I get the picture. You better get over your delicate sensibilities. It's a war out there with women. There are more women on this earth than men. Think about the probabilities of getting married and staying married. Or the probability of finding a man that loves you and you love him, she said to me with a raised eyebrow. Chris proposed some thought-provoking statements. I wanted life to be easy. I thought it was. All I had to do was grow up and my life would be great. Nevertheless, I find life more stressful than I'm prepared for. But what did I know? Maybe it will change for the best. After all, nothing stays the same. I'm at the bottom in finances, life, and love. It can only get better. That thought brought a smile to my face. What's so funny? You started out with the glass half full, and now you are as depressing as I am. You are hanging out with the wrong people, me. You may be right, but we don't choose our friends. Sometimes life does that for you, and I'm stuck with you and you're stuck with me. Since we're inseparable, why don't you fly with me to Paris this spring? You should be due for a vacation away from those stuffy men at the bank, and that includes Jordan. I can't promise you anything, I said. After she finished drinking her coffee, which was cold, we left the coffee shop.